You're drowning, not in water, in commitments. Your calendar is packed with obligations you never wanted. Your energy is drained by people you don't even like. Your dreams are on hold because you can't find time for what actually matters. And it's all because of one tiny word you can't seem to say, no. Right now, you're saying yes to things that make you miserable. Yes to extra projects that aren't your responsibility. Yes to social events you dread attending. Yes to favors that drain your time and energy. Yes, 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 while inside you're screaming no. Here's the brutal truth. Every time you say yes to something that doesn't serve you, you're saying no to something that does. Every yes to someone else's priority is a no to your own. You think you're being kind, generous, and hopeful, but you're actually abandoning yourself. What if you could reclaim your time, your energy, and your life by mastering one simple skill? What if you could say no without guilt, without damaging relationships, and without feeling like a terrible person? Damon Zahariades' The Art of Saying No is your complete guide to setting boundaries, protecting your priorities, and refusing to be taken for granted, all without becoming a selfish jerk. By the end of this video, you'll understand why you struggle to say no, the psychological triggers that make you overcommit, and the exact techniques to decline requests firmly but gracefully. You'll learn how to identify which commitments drain you, how to communicate boundaries clearly, and how to handle the guilt that follows saying no. This isn't about becoming cold or uncaring. This is about having the courage to honor your own life as much as you honor everyone else's demands. Your time is limited. Your energy is finite. The question is, who gets to decide how you spend them? Them or you? Let's learn the art of saying no. Chapter 1. The Yes Trap. You've been conditioned since childhood to say yes. Be agreeable. Be helpful. Don't disappoint people. Don't make waves. Good children say yes. Good employees say yes. Good friends say yes. So you say yes. And you say yes again and again, until your entire life is consumed by obligations you never wanted and commitments that don't align with your values or goals. This is the yes trap, and you're stuck in it right now. Here's how it works. Every yes feels small and manageable in isolation. Sure, I can help with that project. Of course, I'll attend your event. No problem, I'll watch your kids. Each individual commitment seems reasonable. But commitments accumulate. 5 small yeses become an overwhelming workload. 10 reasonable favors become chronic exhaustion. 20 social obligations become no free time. Before you realize it, you've built a prison out of good intentions. The psychological mechanism is simple. Humans are hardwired for social acceptance. Our ancestors survived by being part of the tribe. Rejection meant death. So our brains developed powerful drives to avoid disappointing others, to maintain harmony, to be liked. Saying no triggers ancient fears. What if they get angry? What if they think I'm selfish? What if they don't like me anymore? What if they reject me? These aren't rational thoughts. They're primal panic. Your brain treats social rejection like physical danger. Studies show that social pain activates the same neural regions as physical pain. When you imagine disappointing someone, your brain literally experiences it as threat. So you say yes to avoid that pain, even when yes creates more suffering long term. Add to this the guilt programming most of us received growing up. You were taught that self-care is selfish, that your needs come last, that good people sacrifice for others, that boundaries are mean. This programming runs deep. It operates automatically, beneath conscious awareness. The result? You feel guilty for even considering saying no. Before anyone else judges you, you've already judged yourself. The guilt comes not from actually being selfish, but from the fear that you might be selfish. Here's the truth you need to hear. Saying yes when you mean no is dishonest. It's lying to them and to yourself. It's agreeing to something you don't want to do, can't do well, or will resent doing. That's not kindness. That's cowardice disguised as compassion. When you say yes out of guilt, obligation, or fear, you're not giving a gift. You're paying ransom to avoid discomfort. And the person receiving your resentful yes feels that energy. They know something's off. Reluctant compliance isn't the same as genuine willingness. The yes trap promises social acceptance, but delivers burnout, resentment, and the loss of your own life. You're living on other people's terms, meeting other people's priorities, serving other people's agendas. Meanwhile, your dreams wait. Your needs go unmet. Your authentic self slowly disappears. The only way out is to learn the art of saying no. Not sometimes. Not eventually. Now, Chapter 2. The cost of saying yes. Every yes has a cost. You might not see it immediately, but you're paying for every commitment with something precious. Your time, your energy, your focus, your freedom, and ultimately, your life. Time is non-renewable. You have roughly 4,000 weeks in a lifetime if you're lucky. Every week you spend on obligations you don't value is a week you'll never get back. When you say yes to leading a committee you don't care about, you're spending weeks or months of your finite life on something that doesn't matter to you. The math is brutal. If you spent 10 hours per week on commitments you resent, that's 520 hours per year. That's 65 full workdays. That's more than 2 months of waking hours gone, spent on things you wish you hadn't agreed to. What could you create with 520 hours? You could write a book, learn a language, build a business, master a skill, deepen relationships that actually matter. Instead, those hours disappear into obligations that drain you and serve others. But time isn't the only cost. Energy is even more valuable because it's what makes your time worth living. You can have free time, but be too exhausted to enjoy it. You can have an open weekend, but lack the energy for anything meaningful. Unwanted commitments don't just consume time, they consume life force. The emotional labor of doing things you dread, dealing with people you don't enjoy, and pretending you're happy to help, this exhausts you at a cellular level. You're not just tired, you're depleted. Then there's opportunity cost. What you don't do because you said yes to something else. Every yes to someone else's priority is a no to your own. When you agree to help your neighbor move, you're saying no to the creative project you've been postponing. When you attend an event you don't want to attend, you're saying no to the rest you desperately need. The tragedy is that you can't see these missed opportunities clearly. You only see the immediate request in front of you. You don't see the novel unwritten, the relationship neglected, the dream deferred, the potential unlived, because those exist in the shadow of your yes. There's also the psychological cost, resentment. Every time you say yes when you mean no, a little resentment accumulates. At first, it's barely noticeable, but resentment compounds. Eventually, you resent the people you're helping. You resent yourself for being unable to say no. You resent your entire life because it doesn't feel like yours anymore. This resentment poisons relationships. You're helping people, but you're angry about it. They sense it. The relationship becomes transactional and tense. Paradoxically, saying yes to preserve relationships often damages them through the resentment it creates. Perhaps the deepest cost is the loss of self. When you habitually override your own needs to meet others' demands, you send a powerful message to your unconscious. You don't matter. Your needs aren't important. Your life is secondary to everyone else's. Over time, this creates a hollow existence. You're busy, productive, helpful, and completely disconnected from who you are and what you want. You've become a servant to everyone else's agenda, and you've forgotten you're allowed to have your own. The cost of saying yes when you mean no is nothing less than your life itself, not all at once, but slowly, invisibly, one compromised commitment at a time. Chapter 3, Understanding Your No Before You Can Say No Effectively. You need to understand why you struggle with it. Your inability to decline requests isn't a character flaw. It's a pattern created by specific psychological triggers. Identify your triggers, and you can interrupt the pattern. The people-pleasing trigger. You derive self-worth from external approval. When people are happy with you, you feel valuable. When they're disappointed, you feel worthless. This makes every request a test of your worth. Saying no feels like admitting you're not good enough. The people-pleaser's core fear is, if I'm not useful, I'm not valuable. If I can't help, why would anyone want me around? This belief makes you say yes to prove your worth constantly. But it's a trap, because your worth can never be secured through approval. You're chasing validation that evaporates the moment you stop performing. The guilt trigger. You feel responsible for everyone's feelings and problems. When someone is disappointed, you feel you've done something wrong. When someone struggles, you feel obligated to fix it. This makes every request feel like a moral obligation. The guilt-prone person's core fear is, if I don't help, I'm a bad person. But here's reality. You're not responsible for solving everyone's problems. You're not obligated to sacrifice yourself to spare others mild discomfort. Their feelings are their responsibility, not yours. The conflict avoidance trigger. You'll do anything to avoid confrontation, tension, or negative emotions. Saying no might create conflict, so you say yes to maintain peace. But this isn't peace, it's suppression. You're just avoiding conflict externally by creating it internally. The conflict avoider's core fear is, if I say no, there will be an argument or they'll be angry. Sometimes that's true, but avoiding all conflict means living entirely on other people's terms. You become a prisoner to everyone else's potential displeasure. The reciprocity trigger. Someone helped you once, so now you feel eternally indebted. They did you a favor, so you can never say no to them. This keeps you trapped in an unbalanced relationship where you're always paying back a debt that was never meant to enslave you. The reciprocity trap's core fear is, if I don't reciprocate, I'm ungrateful or taking advantage. But healthy relationships don't keep score. One favor doesn't entitle someone to unlimited access to your time and energy forever. The FOMO trigger. You say yes because you're afraid you'll miss something important. Maybe this opportunity won't come again. Maybe you'll be left out. Maybe you'll regret it. So you say yes even when you don't actually want to participate. The FOMO person's core fear is, if I say no, I'll miss out, and everyone else will have amazing experiences without me. But here's the truth. You're missing out on your own life by attending events you don't enjoy and pursuing opportunities that don't align with your goals. Identifying your dominant trigger is the first step to changing your pattern. When someone makes a request, pause and ask yourself, what am I afraid will happen if I say no? That fear is your trigger, and once you see the trigger clearly, you can question whether it's rational. Will you actually become worthless if you decline this request? Will you actually be a terrible person if you don't help? Will the world actually end if there's momentary tension? Usually, the answer is no. Your trigger is lying to you. Understanding your no means recognizing the gap between your triggered fear and reality. That gap is where your freedom lives. Chapter 4. The permission to say no. You're waiting for permission to say no. Permission from others. Permission from society. Permission from some authority figure who will tell you it's okay to have boundaries. Here's your permission. You're allowed to say no. You're allowed to have limits. You're allowed to prioritize your own life. You don't need anyone else's approval to claim ownership of your time and energy. Let's be explicit about what you're allowed to refuse. You're allowed to say no to social invitations. You don't have to attend every party, wedding, gathering, or event you're invited to. Being invited is not a summons. You're allowed to decline without providing extensive justification. You're allowed to say no to extra work. You don't have to volunteer for every project, take on every assignment, or help every colleague who's struggling. Doing your job well doesn't mean doing everyone else's job too. You're allowed to say no to favors. You don't have to help everyone who asks. You don't have to lend money, provide transportation, watch kids, help people move, or solve their problems. Your willingness to help sometimes doesn't obligate you to help always. You're allowed to say no to family. Blood relation doesn't grant unlimited access to your life. You're allowed to decline family gatherings, refuse to host holidays, and set boundaries with relatives, even parents. You're allowed to say no without explanation. You don't owe people detailed justifications for your decisions. No, that doesn't work for me as a complete sentence. You're not on trial. You don't need to prove your no is legitimate. You're allowed to change your mind. Even if you initially said yes, you're allowed to withdraw that commitment when you realize you can't or shouldn't follow through. It's better to back out than to show up resentfully or do a terrible job. You're allowed to prioritize yourself. Self-care isn't selfish. Taking time for rest, hobbies, and personal pursuits isn't self-indulgent. You matter as much as everyone else. Your needs are as legitimate as theirs. You're allowed to disappoint people. Not everyone will be happy with your boundaries. Some will be frustrated, hurt, or angry. That's unfortunate, but it's not your problem to fix. Their disappointment doesn't obligate you to sacrifice yourself. You're allowed to be selfish. The word selfish has been weaponized to shame people into compliance. But having healthy self-interest isn't selfish, it's necessary. You can't pour from an empty cup. You can't help others if you're completely depleted. Here's what's actually selfish: expecting others to consistently sacrifice their well-being to serve your needs. Demanding people say yes to preserve your convenience. Manipulating people with guilt when they set boundaries. That's selfish. Saying no to protect your time, energy, and sanity isn't selfish. It's self-preservation. And self-preservation is a prerequisite for genuine generosity. When you give from overflow rather than depletion, your yes actually means something. The permission to say no includes permission to feel good about it. You don't have to feel guilty for having boundaries. You don't have to apologize for honoring your priorities. You don't have to minimize your needs to make others comfortable. You are allowed to live your own life. This is your one precious life, not a rehearsal, not a practice run. You don't get a do-over. Every hour spent on obligations you resent is an hour you'll never reclaim. Stop waiting for permission from others. They won't give it. They benefit from your inability to say no. Give yourself permission. Claim your right to boundaries. Own your life. Chapter 5. The techniques of saying no, knowing you're allowed to say no, is one thing. Actually saying it is another. Here are the specific techniques that make declining requests clear, firm, and graceful. The direct no, simple, clear, and firm. No, I can't do that. No, that doesn't work for me. No, I'm not available. No hedging, no excessive apologizing, no long explanations. Just no. This feels harsh at first, but it's actually respectful. You're being honest. You're not wasting their time with false hope or vague maybes. You're giving them clear information so they can move on to other options. The softened no. When directness feels too harsh for the relationship or context, you can soften without weakening. I appreciate you thinking of me, but I need to decline. I'm honored you asked, but I have to pass. I wish I could, but I can't. The softening acknowledges the relationship without changing your answer. You're being kind while remaining firm. The key is making sure the no is still absolutely clear. The explanation no, sometimes context helps. I can't take on additional projects right now because I'm already overcommitted. I need to decline because I'm prioritizing family time this season. I'm not available because I have other commitments that day. Be careful with explanations. They're not apologies or justifications. They're brief context that helps the requester understand. Keep them short. Don't over-explain, which signals guilt or uncertainty. The alternative no. When you want to help but can't do what they're asking, offer an alternative. I can't chair the committee, but I could attend meetings as a regular member. I can't help you move, but I could recommend a good moving company. I can't work late tonight, but I could come in early tomorrow. This works when you genuinely want to contribute something, just not what they're requesting. But don't offer alternatives out of guilt. Only offer if you genuinely want to provide the alternative. The delay no when you need time to think, buy it. Let me check my calendar and get back to you. I need to think about that before committing. Can I give you an answer tomorrow? This prevents pressure-induced yeses. Many people count on immediate response when your defenses are down. Taking time lets you consider rationally instead of reacting emotionally. Just make sure you actually follow up. Don't use this as avoidance. The broken record. When someone won't accept your no, repeat it. I understand you need help, but I can't. I hear you, but my answer is still no. I appreciate the urgency, but I'm not available. Don't get drawn into arguments or negotiations. Don't justify further. Just calmly repeat your boundary. Most people will eventually accept it when they realize you won't budge. The empathy no. Acknowledge their need while maintaining your boundary. I understand this is important to you, and I wish I could help, but I can't. I see you're in a tough spot, but I'm not able to take this on. This validates their feelings without changing your answer. You can be compassionate while still protecting your boundaries. The future no. When you want to help but truly can't right now, offer future possibility, only if you genuinely mean it. I can't do this now, but if the timeline changes, reach out again. I'm not available this month, but I might have capacity in the fall. Be honest about future availability. Don't offer vague maybes as a way to soften current no's. That's just delaying disappointment and keeping you on the hook. The key to all these techniques is commitment. Your no must be clear and firm. Wishy-washy no's invite negotiation. I probably can't becomes maybe you can. I'm not sure becomes let me convince you. Firm doesn't mean mean. You can be kind, warm, and respectful while delivering an unambiguous no. In fact, clarity is kinder than ambiguity because it doesn't waste anyone's time. Practice these techniques. Role play with friends. Rehearse in front of a mirror. The words need to feel natural in your mouth before you can deliver them confidently under pressure. Chapter 6. Handling the guilt. You said no. Congratulations. Now you feel terrible. The guilt crashes over you. What if they really needed me? What if I damaged the relationship? What if they think I'm selfish? What if I am selfish? This is the guilt phase, and it's completely normal. Every person who's learning to set boundaries experiences it. The guilt doesn't mean you did something wrong. It means you're breaking old patterns, and your nervous system is panicking. Here's why guilt happens. Your brain expects consequences. Years of conditioning taught you that saying no leads to rejection, anger, or conflict. So when you say no, your brain floods you with anxiety, trying to protect you from those imagined consequences. But here's what usually actually happens. Nothing. Most people accept your no and move on. They find another solution. They adjust their plans. Life continues. The catastrophe your brain predicted doesn't materialize. Yes, occasionally people do get upset. Some might try to guilt trip you. Some might express disappointment or frustration. This is uncomfortable, but not dangerous. Their feelings are not emergencies you must fix. The guilt reduction technique. Cognitive reframing. When guilt arises, question it. Ask yourself, did I actually do something wrong, or did I simply prioritize my own well-being? Did I harm someone, or did I decline to sacrifice myself for their convenience? There's a huge difference between wrongdoing and boundary setting. Wrongdoing means you violated your values or caused unnecessary harm. Boundary setting means you honored your limits. Guilt is appropriate for wrongdoing. It's inappropriate for boundary setting. The differentiation question, whose needs matter here? If you automatically think theirs, you've been conditioned to self-abandon. The truth is, your needs matter equally. You're not more important, but you're also not less important. Saying no to them isn't saying they don't matter. It's saying you matter too. That's not selfish. That's balanced. The reality check. What are the actual consequences of your no? Not imagined catastrophes, actual outcomes. Usually, they're minimal. The person finds alternative help. They're momentarily disappointed. They adjust their expectations. Life moves on. Very rarely, someone might end the relationship over a boundary. If that happens, consider what you've learned. This person only valued you for your compliance. That's not a relationship. That's exploitation. You haven't lost a relationship. You've discovered its true nature. The self-compassion practice. Treat yourself with the kindness you extend to others. You wouldn't berate a friend for setting boundaries. You wouldn't tell them they're terrible people for prioritizing themselves. Don't do it to yourself. When guilt arises, speak to yourself compassionately. I'm learning to honor my needs. This is hard but necessary. I'm doing the best I can. Self-compassion reduces guilt more effectively than self-criticism. The guilt duration. Understand that guilt is temporary. It's most intense immediately after saying no. Give it 24 to 48 hours. Usually, the guilt fades as you realize the world didn't end. You survived. They survived. And you protected something important. Your life. The values alignment check. Did your no align with your values? If you declined a commitment to spend time with your family, and family is a core value, you should feel good, not guilty. If you refused extra work to protect your health, and health is a priority, you made the right choice. Guilt often arises when we think we violated values. But if you actually honored your values, the guilt is misplaced. You're feeling guilty for doing the right thing. That's just old programming, not moral failure. The permission mantra: I'm allowed to have boundaries. I'm allowed to prioritize my life. I'm allowed to say no. Repeat this when guilt strikes. It's true. You are allowed. The guilt is your conditioning arguing with reality. Over time, the guilt diminishes. As you say no more often and witness that the catastrophes don't happen, your nervous system recalibrates. Saying no starts feeling normal instead of terrifying. The guilt becomes a whisper instead of a scream. But in the beginning, expect guilt. Welcome it as evidence that you're changing. Guilt is the growing pain of boundary development. Feel it, question it, and do the right thing anyway. Chapter 7. Protecting your yes. Learning to say no isn't about becoming a fortress. It's about protecting your yes, making sure when you do say yes, it's genuine, generous, and aligned with your values. The powerful yes, when you say yes from a place of choice rather than obligation, your contribution is completely different. You're engaged, enthusiastic, and effective. You give from overflow, not depletion. This is the yes worth saying, but to have powerful yeses, you must ruthlessly eliminate weak yeses. Weak yeses are the ones driven by guilt, fear, or obligation. They drain you. They breed resentment. They consume time and energy you could have invested in meaningful commitments. The priority filter: before saying yes to anything, ask yourself, does this align with my priorities? If your top 3 priorities are health, family, and career advancement, does this request serve any of those? If not, it's probably a no. This sounds cold, but it's honest. You have limited resources. Investing them randomly means never making progress on what actually matters to you. Selective yes means intentional yes. The energy assessment: how will this commitment affect your energy? Will it energize or drain you? Some obligations, even difficult ones, actually give energy because they align with your purpose. Others deplete you even if they're objectively easy. Pay attention to how you feel when you imagine the commitment. Excitement, dread, resignation. Your gut reaction reveals whether this yes serves you. The opportunity cost analysis: what will you not do if you say yes to this? Every yes displaces something else, even if it's just rest or free time. Is what you're saying yes to more valuable than what you're giving up? Often we say yes to good things while sacrificing great things. Good is the enemy of great. Protect the great by refusing the merely good. The relationship evaluation: is this request coming from a reciprocal relationship or a parasitic one? Reciprocal relationships have balance. You help each other. Parasitic relationships are one-sided. You give, they take. You're allowed to say yes more often to reciprocal relationships and no more often to parasitic ones. Your generosity isn't obligated to support people who won't reciprocate. The sustainability check: is this a one-time request or an ongoing commitment? One-time requests are less risky. Ongoing commitments need serious evaluation. Can you sustain this? Will you resent it after the initial enthusiasm fades? Many people overcommit to recurring obligations thinking they'll have energy later. Then later arrives, and they're trapped in commitments they hate. Be especially cautious with ongoing yeses. The authentic yes: say yes only when you genuinely want to. Not when you feel you should. Not when you'd feel guilty saying no. Not when you're afraid of disappointing someone. When you genuinely want to contribute. How do you know? Your body tells you. Genuine yes feels light, even if the task is hard. Obligatory yes feels heavy. Your body knows the difference before your mind rationalizes. The strategic yes: sometimes you say yes strategically to build relationships, create opportunities, or invest in your future. These yeses aren't purely joyful, but they're chosen intentionally. You're clear why you're saying yes and what you expect to gain. Strategic yes is fine as long as it's conscious. The problem is unconscious yes, agreeing without thought, driven by reflex rather than strategy. The guilt-free yes, when you've established boundaries and learned to say no, your yeses become guilt-free. You're not worried you're overcommitting because you've protected your capacity. You're not worried about resentment because you chose freely. This is the goal, a life where your yeses mean something because your no's protected them, where your generosity comes from abundance, not depletion, where your helpfulness serves others without destroying yourself. Every no to what doesn't serve you is a yes to what does. Every boundary you set creates space for genuine connection. Every obligation you decline makes room for authentic engagement. Protect your yes. It's precious. Don't waste it on commitments that don't deserve it. Chapter 8. Building a life of boundaries. Saying no isn't a one-time skill. It's a lifelong practice. Building a life of healthy boundaries requires consistent application, ongoing adjustment, and continuous courage. The boundary maintenance, boundaries aren't set once and forgotten. They need regular maintenance. People test boundaries. Circumstances change. Your capacity fluctuates. Effective boundary setting means regularly evaluating and adjusting your commitments. Schedule regular boundary audits, maybe monthly or quarterly. Review your commitments. Ask yourself, which of these still serve me? Which am I doing out of obligation? Which should I eliminate or renegotiate? Don't wait until you're completely burned out to reassess. Proactive boundary maintenance prevents crisis. The communication practice. As you establish boundaries, communicate them clearly. Let people know what you're available for and what you're not. I'm not taking on new projects this quarter. I'm not available for calls after 7 p.m. I don't lend money. Clear communication prevents misunderstandings and repeated requests. When people know your boundaries up front, they respect them more easily. The consistency principle. Boundaries only work if you enforce them consistently. If you say no to requests on Tuesday, but yes to the same request on Thursday, people learn your no doesn't mean no, it means keep asking. Consistency teaches people to respect your boundaries. Inconsistency teaches them your boundaries are negotiable. The relationship evolution. As you establish boundaries, some relationships will strengthen. These are the people who respect your limits, value your well-being, and engage with you authentically. These relationships improve because they're based on mutual respect, not obligation. Other relationships will weaken or end. These are the people who only valued your compliance. They're upset that you're no longer available for exploitation. Let these relationships go. They were never serving you anyway. The identity shift. Over time, boundary setting changes your identity. You stop being the person who always says yes. You become someone who has clear priorities, protects their time, and expects reciprocity in relationships. This identity shift is powerful. You carry yourself differently. You communicate more confidently. You expect respect because you respect yourself. People respond to this energy. They take you more seriously. The modeling effect. When you establish boundaries, you give others permission to do the same. Your family, friends, and colleagues watch you. When they see you saying no without catastrophe, they realize they can too. You become a model for healthy boundary setting. This is one of the greatest gifts you can give others, showing them it's possible to honor themselves. The self-trust development. Every time you set a boundary and survive the discomfort, you build self-trust. You prove to yourself that you can handle tension, disappointment, or conflict. You demonstrate that your needs matter. This self-trust is transformative. You stop abandoning yourself to please others. You start believing you deserve the life you want. You develop the confidence to make choices aligned with your values rather than others' expectations. The life reclamation, gradually, your life becomes yours again. Your calendar reflects your priorities. Your energy goes toward what matters to you. Your relationships are reciprocal and authentic. You're no longer living on autopilot, reacting to everyone else's demands. This is freedom. Not freedom from responsibility, but freedom to choose your responsibilities consciously. Freedom to build a life that reflects who you are and what you value. The ongoing practice, even after mastering the art of saying no, you'll face challenges. New people will test your boundaries. New situations will tempt you to overcommit. Old patterns will occasionally resurface. This is normal. Boundary setting isn't a destination, it's a practice. You'll have moments of strength and moments of weakness. What matters is the overall trajectory. Are you generally protecting your priorities? Are you mostly honoring your limits? Are you moving toward a life of authentic yes? Don't expect perfection. Expect progress. Some days you'll say no firmly. Other days you'll say yes when you should have said no. Learn from both. Each experience teaches you something about yourself and your boundaries. The ultimate goal isn't to never help anyone or to become completely self-focused. The goal is balance, giving from overflow, helping when you genuinely can, saying yes when you truly want to, and saying no when necessary to protect your well-being. You're building a life where your time and energy are invested wisely, where your relationships are mutually supportive, where your dreams have space to flourish, and where you matter as much as everyone you're helping. This is your one life. You're allowed to live it on your terms. The art of saying no makes that possible. You've learned why saying yes when you mean no destroys your life, one commitment at a time. You've understood the psychological triggers that make you overcommit: people-pleasing, guilt, conflict avoidance, and FOMO. You've received explicit permission to say no without apology or excessive justification. You now have specific techniques for declining requests clearly and gracefully: the direct no, the softened no, the broken record. You understand how to handle the guilt that follows boundary setting and recognize it as old programming, not moral failure. You've learned to protect your yes by filtering commitments through your priorities, assessing energy impact, and evaluating opportunity costs. And you've seen how building a life of boundaries transforms not just your schedule, but your identity and relationships. But knowledge alone changes nothing. You must act. You must practice. You must start saying no. Starting today, identify one commitment you're doing out of guilt or obligation. Something you resent, something that drains you, something that doesn't align with your priorities. Find a way to exit that commitment. Decline the request. Resign from the committee. Set the boundary. Yes, it will be uncomfortable. Yes, you'll feel guilty. Yes, someone might be disappointed. But you'll survive. They'll survive. And you'll have taken the first step toward reclaiming your life. Then do it again and again. With each no, you build the muscle. With each boundary, you prove to yourself that you matter. With each protected yes, you invest in what actually deserves your time and energy. Remember, you're not being selfish. You're being self-preserving. There's a profound difference. You can't serve others from depletion. You can't be generous from empty. You can't help anyone if you've abandoned yourself completely. The art of saying no is ultimately the art of honoring your own life. It's recognizing that you matter. Your dreams matter. Your health matters. Your time matters. And you're the only person who can protect those things. If this video gave you permission and techniques to start setting boundaries, hit that like button and subscribe for more content on taking back control of your life. Drop a comment and tell me, what's one commitment you're going to say no to this week? Your life is waiting, but it's trapped behind a wall of obligations you never wanted. Every no you say dismantles that wall, brick by brick. Start saying no. Start reclaiming your time. Start honoring your energy. Start protecting your yes. Start living your actual life instead of everyone else's idea of what your life should be. The art of saying no is the art of saying